we're live, but I always need confirmation from the community. So people in chat, I see Jonathan, I see Aaron.
Hey.
Who else? Dragon King 890, promissory note.
The first thing.
There actually is a question about promissory note in today's question list. Can people hear us? If you are in chat, if you could answer. You should be able to, but I don't trust technology. I am a wizard.
Yep.
I'm not really a wizard. I'm seeing more hellos, so I'm hoping that, they can actually hear us.
That's good. Hello,
Okay.
hello.
Yeah,
Hello,
For
hello.
those that can hear us.
We can hear you. Okay, thank you, Dragon King. All right, more people.
1, 2.
All right, so for those of you tuning in who have tuned in before, you're wondering, wait, Nova? Nova does it? What's he doing here? So, hi Nova. We're doing something new today. I'm going to let people introduce themselves in a second, but I wanted to explain what you're seeing. Nova is one of our content creators who belongs to the CCP, the Content Creator Program. And he's also been someone who's covered a lot of the lore, the story behind Neverwinter. And since today we have two of our content designers, I asked Nova if he wanted to co-host with me. I really gives me an opportunity to work closely with the community. As a player, as a community member, having Nova here is great. And so this is something you might see me test out with other content creators. I hope it goes well. He's kind of there to be your voice as well. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. So I'm going to start with Ryan. Who are you, Ryan? Why are you here?
My name is Ryan Zash. I am a content designer on Neverwinter. I came on the team, probably one of the more recent additions to the Neverwinter team. I came on about in just a couple months before the pandemic hit. So I got my 2 or 3 months in the office before I got sheltered off to home. Been working from home since then. I used to work at Tryon Studios on Rift and doing QA and stuff on Atlas Reactor and some other games that they put out. So excited to be here. I'm one of the people who's been working on Module 20 and mostly on episode 2 and 1, and I'm also doing a little bit of work on the next module in the future times.
Noah, what are you? Who are you, and how long have you been here? Because you were here before, and then you left, and you came back. So tell us your story, Noah.
I'm Noah Holmes. I did. Spoilers. Man, there goes my thunder. Hi, so I'm Noah Holmes, senior content designer on Neverwinter. As she alluded to, Julia said, I had worked at Cryptic before in 2008 to 2010. I worked on Champions, the last year of development of Champions, and then I worked on Star Trek Online for a little while, about 6 months or so. And then I left, went to Tryon Worlds, and I worked with Ryan Zash actually for a little while at Tryon. Other stuff. I've been at Cryptic now again since 2018. I came back late 2018.
Oh, I think we're having connection issues with Noah.
Are you free? I think he froze.
Yep. All right. So yes, Noah is joining us from a phone in his backyard. So looks like he might have some connection issues. So we'll let him figure that out, and we will move on to Nova, because that's not going to get confusing. Who are you, Nova? The prophet.
I'm Nova. I've been a content creator for Neverwinter since around 2014. I've been following Cryptic since the City of Heroes days, and I'm pretty much really happy to be here to try to basically help bridge the gap between the community and the developers. That get us on that good, clear foundation together.
Mm-hmm. And I am Julia, or Nitocris, the community manager, and ideally I would be able to, my goal is to bridge the community and the team, but it's always just me, one person, doing a lot of stuff. For any of you who are familiar with community management, there's social media involved and a lot of marketing. So it's rough to have to do it all by myself, which is why working with the content creators and the content creator program has been amazing, just because it makes that bridge work better. So I really appreciate having that help and that support. And Noah is on his own little roller coaster right there.
Sorry. Apologies. Technical difficulties.
This is why we have
never goes as planned.
We should bring in a QA person for these streams and see what happens then, because they break everything because they have to. It's their job.
It's time for me to get a real camera, is what this is telling me.
Yeah. If you want, I can put in the ticket to IT.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'll do this as a producer. All right. So we thank you everybody for the introductions. We are here to talk about the content design. So the story, the basically the setting for episode 2, The Soul Keeper. Um, I know there's always a lot of systems questions. I know a lot of you always want to know what's happening in the future, new classes, combat. It's a lot of questions, I understand, but I do want to give an opportunity for our content designers to talk about what they do and how they worked on it, just because that's another integral aspect of the game. If you didn't have a story, if you didn't have a setting, you know, it wouldn't be an MMO. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to start off, first of all, with a couple announcements. One is episode 2 is live on PC, and it will be live on console on May 11th. So, which is the day I'm also getting my second vaccine. So we're going to see how that works out for you all. And the second announcement is that just like 30 minutes before the stream started, I got word that the new lockbox, the Enchanted Lockbox, was dropping on console, and no lockbox was dropping on PC. Now, this lockbox was not supposed to drop until Thursday. So
Nice.
there is a bus with the name Taramac on it that he has given me permission to throw him under. And he wants to take the blame for this one. There were some changes in scheduling, and other stuff didn't get changed in the back end. But it should all be being fixed right now as we speak. So hopefully that works out. But I just want to acknowledge that is something people are wondering. Yes, and people were asking about the promissory note. Someone already came in, like one of the first things that was said, so that's been taken care of. We will be giving away Rainbow Starry Panthers today. So.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shiny.
Make sure you guys are here. Make sure you guys are here.
Yep. So probably do the first one at 3:15. So we're gonna start off with Nova. Are you okay if I start off with a question, and then
Yeah,
I'll
of
bounce it
course.
off? Okay. So let me bring up my questions. So just a really easy starting. What did you do in episode 2? So Ryan, I'll let you go first. What did you do? What are
So
you
it
to
was
blame
kind of
for?
I'm to blame for a lot of little things. The main thing that I did starting off before episode 2 was working on the foreshadowing events for foreshadowing what was going on in the transition between episode or M19 and M20. But for episode 2, the main thing that I did was most of the Adventure Zone content. So all the stuff that's taking place just in the Adventure Zone as a whole. So like where the critters are and the story of everything up until the Hag's Lair. I also did the initial pre-pro for most of the storyline for this episode, whereas Noah did episode 1 and episode 3. I did episode 2. So, and there went Noah again.
All right, so I'll follow up with you. You mentioned the foreshadowing, and I believe that is what the dialogue that kind of showed up with NPCs for like a few weeks before the content started.
Yes, some hidden dialogue that showed up here and there on certain NPCs that hopefully all got found, and hopefully maybe led to some people like Nova scheming and thinking about things.
Well, I did.
I
It was really
watched.
great. Yeah, it was really great because I didn't really make a big deal about it this time
There we go.
with Acquisition Zinc. I did a little bit more because it was the first time we did. I think we'd done foreshadowing, but for this one I didn't really do much in terms of. I just wanted to see what kind of organic attention it got, and I personally love those kind of things. And so, I always love to see them. I always love when designers have a chance to insert that kind of little breadcrumbs around the game. So, Noah, you're back. So, what did you work on?
Hey, apologies, guys, for the connectivity issues. I'm on my phone, and my alarm keeps going off, and it interrupts my audio, and so I apologize. Anyway, I'll be better next time, I promise. Anyway, so, Ryan Zash has done an amazing job handling all of the major story beats and all the major story elements for episode 2 with the Night Hag. It's been and Ryan and I worked very closely shoulder to shoulder on a lot of the major story beats for episode 1 and episode 2, and some of the future content we've worked closely with hashing out a lot of those story elements. But as far as episode 2 goes, I worked on the heroic encounters, which tie in directly to the main story thread that weaves its way through the Mended Grove and the main story that Ryan had put together and put in the game. And then a lot of the other smaller pieces, like some of the lore elements I wrote and put in the game, and a lot of the other stuff that supports the major story thread that Ryan had put in for episode 2.
Cool.
And Noah also did the heavy lifting on the encounters at the end instance of this episode.
That's true. The story end cap. Thank you very much. Of course, how could I forget? The Night Hag lair and the puzzle mechanic stuff was all stuff that I built and implemented, working closely with the environment artists who did an amazing job making my stuff look good.
Environment did. They just knocked it out of the park. Oh my goodness. So yeah.
The new Hag lair today. I think PC players were able to access it today, and it looked amazing. Really good.
Nice.
I was so sad during alpha testing and beta testing of episode 1. Some people were able to get, there was just a gap in a wall, and people were able to get into the Mended Grove while it was still in development, and I hadn't put the lock on the door
You
to
tricky
the layer.
players.
You guys made it into that layer while it was in progress, and I was just kicking myself.
I'm blaming Enyo for that. Enyo can get into anywhere in the game.
Oh.
Like she just knows how to get into any little corner. It's
Neverwinter parkour is a thing.
You gotta watch out for her. You gotta watch out.
Hey, we're the ones who started doing the scrying orbs, so the parkour is our fault. So we're gonna take the blame for that one.
One of the things I also, if I can add, if you don't mind, if I can add to the layer, one of the things we wanted to do that we didn't do with the first module, I don't know, for those of you who remember the first module of Sharandar that came out with M1, one of the things that we wanted to try to do that we really didn't capture as much and to bring forward to M20 was sort of showcasing the fact that the Feywild is very old. It's a plane of existence in Dungeons and Dragons that's been around for a very long time. And there's ancient empires have existed that the current Ilian Bruin are members of and connected to with the Eladrin and the Ilfarin Empire. And so we wanted to try to incorporate elements of the Ilfarin Empire. And so players will get to see some elements of that in the actual culmination of the entire M20 story arc at the end of episode 3. And parts of elements of episode 3 will include the ancient Ilfarin Empire. But that's where the players go when they confront the Night Hag. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. So.
Nice. Very cool. Nova, I'm going to pass it on to you. Go ahead and ask questions. Take the lead.
Well, since we're on the story, there have obviously been lots of NPCs that have been talking about the Soulmonger. So one of my first questions is it true that after the events of Tomb of Annihilation that Acererak was defeated, but the Soulmonger stayed intact? And if the Soulmonger stayed intact, what exactly does Valindra's purpose serve for that? For the story going forward.
Ryan, you want to take that? I mean, you managed a lot of that story.
One of the interesting things is the term Soulmonger, there's both an item, which was what you guys dealt with in the end of Chult, but in this module, it's a reference to a title that the Night Hag has taken that deals basically with their habit. Night Hags have this nasty habit of stealing souls and corrupting people and taking those souls down to Hades and things like that. And if you look around the lore that Noah's written and the way that we've set up the encounters with the Night Hag, she uses those souls to power some of the mechanisms that she uses to exert influence and hold sway as an ancient hag over her little portion of the Feywild and Sharandar. So there's not necessarily a connection between the Soulmonger relic, that artifact that was in prior expansions that you dealt with, compared to what Wade's being used here. It's a title as opposed to an item. So they're completely different, not linked at all. That at least is visible.
So I guess you could say plot holes involving like Makos turning Celeste into a zombie and whatever family issues Makos has doesn't really have any relation with what's going on now in the game?
No, and that's part of the reason why Makos isn't present in this expansion, other than just being a breadcrumb to lead you to the issues that are going on. Makos is still dealing with the fallout with what's going on in Avernus, and he's still there presently in the game. When Makos needs to move, Makos will have something probably larger to do down the line somewhere when an opportunity opens up to bring him back, because he is unique in that he's one of our cryptic priority characters, but also one that we share with WotC. So he's unique that he is one that is both WotC's and ours. So he is definitely something that's going to come back at some point in time. When, I can't say for sure. And even if I knew, I probably couldn't say. But yeah,
Makos' story is an interesting one. We definitely have future plans for him, which we can't really elaborate on at the moment. But he currently is taking a back seat because he doesn't really fit with what we're doing with Daily and Bruin at this time. But we haven't forgotten about Makos.
I also think he's gotten, people don't trust him anymore. I mean, there's some trust issues he's got to rebuild right there. So
he has that whole lich problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last time we had a lich problem, it didn't turn out so well for, Neverwinter and Protector's Enclave. That was a lot of money that Neverember had to spend rebuilding. And as we've seen, it takes a while for Neverember to deliver on his promises.
He is currently missing in action, too.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows where he is. Is there a... Because you know how you guys tend to develop things and put things hidden in plain sight, like the Spelljammer, the Nautiloid ship, and Lair of the Mad Mage. Is there anything like that that we could currently see right now in the game that could give us some sort of idea as to who the main antagonist is of this story that we're going through right now?
Well, I can take an attempt at this. So I'm trying to think. We do have a lot of Easter eggs nested and scattered about that will allude to who the main antagonists are in this current module. In the future stories, we've also started seeding things with Easter eggs and plot seeds to allude to what's going to be happening and coming in the future. Some of that hasn't actually been released yet. And so that's actually stuff that's being worked on right now and will be out very soon. There's some elements in episode 3 of M20 Sharandar that will allude to what's coming and will allude to who the main antagonist is.
Is this story with Mod 20 going to end with Mod 20, or is it going to be sort of like a continuation, like how it was with Fury of the Feywild leading into Valindra into Shadowmantle and the Dread Ring, or is it just Sharandar's story and then it ends with Sharandar, then we do something else?
Well, the current plan is to keep Sharandar and the Feywild kind of encapsulated as its own story, like a lot of modules are in typical D&D fashion. But there will definitely be elements that will connect other modules together, and there will be main story threads and recurring characters for sure.
Okay.
And there,
That answers your question.
There's characters that have been introduced, recently that might lead into what's happening next. So.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, like when episode 1 first came out, I got a special item in my inventory from killing an enemy, an Iron Tooth, and at the same time we're dealing with the Queen of Air and Darkness. And then even though you just told us that the Soulmonger is more on the lines of a title versus the actual artifact, would it be safe to assume that there is only one main antagonist versus there being multiple?
I want to see how they worm their way out of this one.
I'm pretty cryptic with these questions.
It's that's what we do.
I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you want to tackle that, or I can help?
Evasive maneuver.
I'll let you know because you have a little more visibility on the way things shake out at the end. So.
Okay.
If you want to grab that, Noah, or did you freeze?
No, I'm here. I think the best way to sum it up is it'll all be revealed in time. But it's hard to share any information without creating spoilers, and so it's sort of I don't want to do this story any disservice,
Of course.
There's no great way to do any kind of gymnastics to get out of that question, to be honest.
And I'm actually going to jump in on this one because I do want to address, a community feedback that we got when we released episode 2 was that a lot of players felt like, well, it wasn't on preview. And that was a departure from what we've normally done, which is we usually have always put our content on preview beforehand. And this was a decision that was, there was a lot of back and forth. There were different opinions in the many meetings I was in. There were differing opinions on whether we should or not. And at the end, it was decided that because we were testing out this episodic content, and how we wanted to expose it to players, it felt, it's kind of like when you see a movie trailer that gives away the entire movie. It takes away from the experience of the movie.
Basically, you guys didn't want to give
Yeah,
it all away.
exactly.
You don't want to reveal all your cards, basically.
Exactly.
You want to show some, but not everything.
Hi,
Well,
Cameo.
heck, some of us thought that the trailers were like, it's giving away too much in the trailer of
Really?
just
That-
like some of the things that Noah and I are like, no, they're giving away too much for us.
I wonder what
So,
I'm
yeah.
missing then.
Yeah.
I
Giving
think
away all that.
Yeah, I think if you go back and look at the trailers after you played through some of the episodic content, you'll be able to immediately start to piece things together, and then you'll go, "Oh man, this has been here right the whole time."
Well, let's switch roads right here. With each of these episodes lasting roughly around like 2 months or so, like how does the team plan on keeping the content during that time frame relevant and exciting for the players? Because right now it seems like there's a lack of motivation, there's a lack of players wanting to play, and a lot of players just standing around waiting for bounties, waiting for quests and things like that. What does the team plan to do to improve the quality and the overall retention of the game?
So some of the questions, I actually reached out to some other people in the team, just because I figured that, Ryan and Noah, there was only so much that they would be able to handle. So I actually have some information if you two want me to try to answer this one, or do you want to answer this one, or?
I think we can all answer. Go ahead, you can go first though, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna cover some notes. So shout out to Randy and Jared for just kind of passing on some notes. Basically, the structure was the goal was to have new content more frequently, and unfortunately, when you have new content more frequently, it's going to be a little less content. It's something new and interesting for players to do on a regular basis, but it wasn't like we didn't intend it for the duration to have just continuous new stuff or like a mass volume of it. And players will work at different paces. Some people will just burn through content super fast, no matter how much content we've thrown at them. Even for past modules that were released all in one chunk, players will devour it. Other players kind of like go little by little,
Yeah.
And there's and I think after a while you kind of get into the groove and you discover like what do you like best about doing it? Like do you go in and like to join the queues? Do you like to role play? There's little things for everybody, and I think we'd love it if we could just give a ton of new experiences all the time on a lot more frequent basis. But we also have, there's the reality of the resources we have.
Indeed. Okay.
That's great, Nova. I appreciate you asking the hard questions. By the way, I think that's really good. I think players do deserve the best, and I think it's my understanding that when we try to make a one-size-fits-all, it's very difficult to do because different players find their fun and entertainment in different ways. So one of the things we try to do is when we create these story elements, we know that not all players are going to be driven and motivated by story. Some players want to chase the hardest 2% in the game. They want to face Hallister, right? Or some players want to just go around and collect all the mounts. So collections are a big thing, and that drives their gameplay and their retention, right? Or it's just collecting an item acquisition, right, in power. And so we try to make it as broad as possible. But to go with what Julia was saying, is one of the other challenges is every time we do a content drop, if they are more frequent, they are going to be slightly smaller in scope. And that's just sort of one of the challenges. So we're kind of trying this out too, is something new at Cryptic. As you are been with the game for a while, Nova, you're quite aware that our content drops are usually stretched out further and they're much larger in size. So we just sort of, and there's also, I do have to be honest too, as I'm always honest, is we did have a bit of a challenge with COVID and pivoting to working remotely. The entire team, almost 200 employees, suddenly overnight having to realize, hey, we have to keep making this game and this content for our players. How are we going to do this? And so that also added to the development time. So we appreciate everyone's patience while we were going through that transition. So,
Yep.
Ryan, do you want to add?
Yeah, and there were some some actual changes that we had to make to the way that this entire module was flowing out due to COVID and due to changes just in scoping of things as we transitioned back summer. Like originally, I wasn't on this part of the project; I was on a different one, and I got shifted over to this to work on M20 with Noah, and we had a different scope slightly when we first started on this, like what was it, last summer or something like that.
Yep.
And several key features that we thought would be, or several things that we thought would be key features ended up being moved out of the scope of that. So we had to go and backfill and do a lot of not so much gymnastics, but just reworking of what we had our original thought was, and massaging the story to fit that.
Yeah.
And so like those gameplay loops, you can see that we added in the bounty hunt boards this last time to try to address some of the feedback that players have given us about episode 1, and trying to help that out for episode 2 and 3. So one of the ways that we're helping to combat those those instances where you mentioned where players are sitting around kind of not sure what to do is we're listening to the feedback, we're taking it in, and we're trying to take actionable steps to address that in a way that can be done both with the scope of the team and the area that we're working in.
Okay. Can you say that is the bounty system currently what's going to replace the old hunt system, or is it just an adaptation of something new?
I can speak to that. It's just an additional system. It stands on its own. It's not going to replace hunts whatsoever. And hunts may come back in a future module, just like they did with Avernus with M19. It's not meant to be a new version of hunts, and it's not meant to replace it. It's a separate system that stands on its own as another activity for players.
Okay.
So
good. That's good to know.
And we have, like, I have seen like the feedback, every time we release a new system. So when we had the Avernus hunts, there was a lot of comparison to the Barovia hunts. And when we released the bounties, people, compare them to the Barovia, because we understand that people really like the Barovia hunts. I actually, when I was talking to Randy, our lead designer, I asked, what's the decision process goes behind, like, which system to use. It's that it comes down to a design decision. If something feels like thematically fits better for one content, and you create a new system or reuse another one. But I don't think that the goal is to ever replace old systems. It's just to create something new and see what the viability of it, the player reaction. Every time we create something new, we do learn from it. It might seem like we don't. It might seem like it takes a while for us to learn, but we definitely learn. It just the learning process is just lengthy.
I definitely feel that.
It's a good way to describe the studio sometimes, is that we have a really big heart, but we have clumsy feet, sometimes.
Not always a lot of time either.
No.
So Master of the Hunt, that's gone. And I guess logic can assume that it should come back with Sharandar. Is that something you guys can confirm or deny?
I can answer that.
Confirm.
She does have
Take
info
it
on
away.
that.
I have an answer for that one, because it is the same bus that Terramac was driving. That again, he's gonna throw himself under, and he gave me permission to throw him under the bus. So that we had been working on a new version of Master of the Hunt. We had been working on it, and the new skirmish to tie it into Sharandar, but we had some timing issues, and so that did not pan out. Now, because we were working on the new one, we had turned off the old one to test out and work on the new one. And when the module went on live on PC, the old one wasn't turned back on again.
Yes.
Just because, when you start messing with systems in the back end, turning things on and off, you get things like, the lock boxes showing up when they shouldn't. And so I was able to be corrected for console, and which is why Master of the Hunt, the old version, it's on in console, though dropping old currency. But this Thursday, I got confirmed that this Thursday it will be back. The old version will be back on PC, and it will be dropping the new currency.
Can I say something here, though? In our defense, this is the very first time we've ever taken old content and reimagined it, and so there's going to be a few hiccups along the way. I just want to point that out.
So this Master of the Hunt won't turn into something like the Dread Vault, where it would only come back for an event. Like, it's going to be back in the game as a queue.
Yeah. It'll be the old skirmish. Yeah, because even though we were working on a new version of it, it just timing wise, it's kind of like alluding to what Ryan mentioned. There are things that have to get cut. Things that just.
Okay. With that, will there be new rewards? And you mentioned Noah, I think earlier, about like players wanting to like collect mounts and things like that. Moving forward with the content, is that something that you guys? I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen it on the forums and everywhere with the community. Like, we want to farm mounts here, there. We want to know where these things come from. Is that something that you guys are taking into consideration and wanting and doing to implement into the game?
100%. I'll speak. I mean, Chantel, unfortunately, she's not in this stream, so she can't really speak directly. She manages a lot of the majority of our rewards, and we definitely listen to player feedback, and we definitely want to give you guys vectors, and we want to be transparent about all the different ways you can acquire these things. So it comes down to messaging, right, and how we handle that.
Yeah, and it's
We're
actually.
not
Oh, go ahead.
trying to hide rewards from you guys. We want you to get them. We want you to know how to get them. We want you to play the game.
Yeah.
Unless it's a surprise, which we do from time to time. But most of the time, we want you to know where to find that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, like being able to farm the mounts in Hallister, and there's like a Suit Lion. You have Iku's Titivated Lion. Like these, I think these are like really important aspects of the game that help like keep the content fresh and keep all types of players, casual, new, and end gamers wanting to do the content because it's something that they can collect, it's something they can add to their collection points or something like that. And it's good to know that you guys want to do that and want to make it happen.
And I think when things get stale, like old mounts, and people like get tired of trying to chase them in different old vectors, we can add them into new things and bring them back and make them available again. So for players to get.
Oh yeah, definitely. There should I always think that like mounts should just always come out of like, even if it's like a quest line or like anything, like I don't even know how to say it, just like anything, just being able to farm a mount rather it just being randomly dropped out of a lockbox is better than it being randomly dropped out of a lockbox for the players, I think.
Shake a tree, have a giant spider drop on your face. Like
No.
Yeah, Saurtuk's, colored spider.
There you
Yeah,
go.
just knock down a tree. I mean, you can have like a 1 in 1,500 chance of it dropping as a mount. And I was like a little world boss, right around on Gary or something if you kill him 10,000 times or something.
Cool.
So speaking of mounts, I'm actually going to interrupt for a second and we're going to do a giveaway, especially because my cat is
nice.
trying to chew my arm off.
Get
Hey,
hyped.
kitty.
Giveaway time.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and log into that. And we have Rainbow Starry Panthers again today because that seems to be, yes, for all platforms. That seems to, hold on. Bowie, I love you, but I do need my arms to play. So let's not.
2 big questions for you guys coming up.
Oh, fun.
Content questions.
Oh my goodness.
Not systems questions? Yes.
Ones I can answer. Right?
I hope you can answer.
All right. So in honor of Nova, if you would like a chance to win a Rainbow Starry Panther mount, go ahead and type in the word Nova, Nova. Nova, you are a giveaway name now.
That's awesome. There's a first time for everything.
Exactly. See, now you get to see on chat your name just written many, many times. Like, oh my goodness, my cat is gonna murder me, I swear.
But it's a cat. I don't get to see pets anymore since the office is
you could have
quarantined.
You could have your own pet.
No, not in my house, sadly.
I'm sorry.
My house is not pet safe.
Can you have a goldfish?
What was that, Nova?
I said, do we want to continue with the with the questions while the giveaway? Or are we doing the giveaway?
I like to do the giveaway. Questions? It's slowing down, so I usually use this time for my guests to kind of decompress and chat. But slowing down, so we're gonna go ahead and draw the winner. And I feel like this person's won before. Executioner, I believe you've won before in the past, but I'm not sure. So
nice.
Yeah. So congratulations. I'm going to draw a couple more and then I'll give instructions
on
how to claim.
We have a winner.
And then Flo Neverwinter, Flo_Neverwinter, congratulations. And then a final winner.
Nice.
Congrats everybody.
Demamu. Okay. Congratulations, Demamu, Flo Neverwinter, and Executioner.
Congratulations, all the winners.
Yeah, go ahead.
Congrats.
Yeah. And go ahead and email community@crypticstudios.com because I need to know what platform you play on. So if I called your name out, email community@crypticstudios.com. Let me know if you play on Xbox, PS4, or PlayStation in general, or PC, and I will get you your code. Probably not today, but tomorrow, hopefully. So congratulations on all of you. We'll do more prizes towards the end of the stream.
Awesome.
We can continue now. So
All right. So this is a pretty big question that I've had for a while. That's I forgot when it happened, but Tiamat as a 25-man raid. It's been gone for a while. So how do I say this? Neverwinter is an MMORPG, massively multiplayer online experience. How do we bring that back into Neverwinter when our zones are limited to 10 players and our hardest, biggest content in the game that we have is limited to 10 players? How do we bring the massively multiplayer experience back when we're limited to 10 players at a time for content?
That's almost a question I almost want to say for Randy, really.
or a core question.
I mean, it could be a core question.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Only because. Go ahead, Ryan. Do you have a comment?
No, I do remember Randy did mention something about this. I'm just trying to see if I can remember what it was that he said. But yeah, there is, no matter what we do, we have to make sure that we keep in focus the performance limitations on our lowest common denominator. I play on a potato at home. So we do have to keep those type of situations in, make sure that we account for those so we don't create content that's going to be a miserable experience for a bunch of people because they just can't function on their machines that are ones that have been qualified to run the content in the past, and all of a sudden we release new content that's impossible for them to run. That's never a fun thing for the game as a whole. But it is something that if it's, I don't know of anything in the next in episode 3 that's set to deal with 25 person encounters, but these are things that could be considered in the future. I don't know if they're on the roadmaps for anything future, but it is something that can be considered on a case by case basis, and whether or not we have the ability to do that, I'm not sure.
That's a really good question. I mean, I think it comes down to increasing the fidelity of the game and trying to manage what our minimum spec requirements are for the game and supporting some of the older consoles still that play our game. So I think there are some challenges with that. It's probably a combination of all those elements, but it's a really good question.
Okay. So
I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, Nova. Sorry.
not really, but I understand what you guys are saying. I guess it was kind of like I was hoping more of like, yeah, we're gonna do this because next gen just came out, so we have the capabilities now because maybe Xbox and PlayStation was holding us back previously.
That's a good point. And to that point, actually, we have had a similar conversation with that. Whereas I think at some point, if we ever spin down old consoles, then we'd have more freedom to expand like population counts for players and zones and instances and things. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Nothing's really, and to paraphrase what Randy said, nothing's really off the books. So it is something that can be done, but we have to make sure that we do so in a very focused way so that we do not create, basically by putting something out, we create something that only the people on the bleeding edge of technology are able to do. We want to make sure that's something that's accessible to the broad player base as a whole, not from the not from a challenge standpoint, but just from a performance standpoint. The challenge standpoint, we can scale up by making, hard modes, epic modes, things like that of those type of contents. But yeah, it's something it's not something that we've written off completely, but it is something that we could possibly do in the future.
Okay.
And the reason I mentioned core is, it's a little bit of insight into game development. The Neverwinter team, we get together and, we come up with a roadmap, we come up with things we want, our wish list for the game. This is what we would like. And then it breaks down even further. Then, designers have to get together with the art team and say, is this feasible? Can the art team do this? Then there's also the engineering part. Like, from an infrastructure, from an engine perspective, is this feasible? And that's when we have to work with the core team, which works with all the other game teams in the company. So it's a lot of negotiation, basically. Like, what resources do you have, and which ones can we use now for our title versus what Magic or what Star Trek might need, or even Champions, even though they're a small team, they still need resources as well. So it's not just a wanting to make sure that the game is accessible to as many players as possible, but it's also just a where are we in the timeline? Where can our needs where can our needs be met? And the reason I also bring this up is because I'm seeing a lot of questions on the chat that I didn't want to ignore, which mentioned roadmap. And I know you heard us mention it during the stream a little bit, and that is something that I am still working on in terms of with Matt and Randy of when we can present the updated roadmap. That's something that I personally really enjoyed doing last year when we kicked off last year with a roadmap, and then we did another update midway. But there have been changes to the schedule, and they're still being finalized in terms of where everything is going to fit. But my goal is hopefully is within the next month or two to be able to have a stream where we actually do roll out the roadmap. So that's something
with
we have
the
in mind.
roadmap. With the old roadmap that we have right now, and not the new revised one, how accurate is that to the revised one that we don't see? Is Masterwork still on schedule? Is the Siege rework still on schedule? Is the achievement system and things like that still on schedule, or have those been shifted somewhere else?
So I've got some answers for that one. So
I'm glad you do.
Yeah. Again, thank you, Randy and Jared. So for in terms of Masterwork, it's still on the schedule, but it's not going to be like one massive rework. It's just making adjustments. I think M16 taught us that doing massive change across every system was not a good idea. I mean, as it is with the combat rework, which was just changes in one section of the game, the combat, that we got a lot of feedback on that one. Some players were not happy, other players were fine, but even that was a smaller scale. So, changing Masterwork, a huge overhaul of the whole profession system, that's after we introduced the workshop, that was already a big enough change of how people had to approach professions. So, but it's still on the roadmap in terms of making adjustments and changes. So that hasn't changed. It's just that we want to set the proper expectations regarding scope. And as for Siege, that is still on the roadmap as well. Just like recently, I just actually was in a meeting where we talked about Wonders of Gond event and how the different designers have different pitches for how to update different events. So we're looking at different ones.
That's a really good segue. Events. So I think I was one of the few that really noticed that this was one of the first events, the April Fool's event, where we actually had a dungeon for the event, and not many people actually took notice of that. Is that something that you guys are going to continue doing into the future, like maybe a Gond dungeon for the Wonders of Gond, or I'm losing my train of thought on what other events we have in the game right now. But are you guys planning on making basically more queuable content for us to experience in the game versus heroic encounters? And then another segue to that would be, what's the likelihood of a module without heroic encounters replaced by dungeons?
I can take both those questions, really.
Okay.
So your first one, the dungeon thing was an impromptu design idea, and we just thought we would try it out. As often we do is we experiment with things that seem fun or cool or interesting for our players. And if it's sticky enough and it's fun and we have the bandwidth and the scope to do it, the capacity to do it, we'll add it to other events going forward. It just depends on how well it's received by the players and how fun it is and how much overhead it is to develop. And then the second question, heroic encounters are sort of a staple story element to all of our open adventure zones. I don't see them going away. I don't see dungeons replacing them. And we definitely want to be doing dungeons in the future always, just like we'll do trials as well. They're a core part of what makes Neverwinter. They're a core vector for gameplay and itemization and an activity for players to do. So dungeons will always be added to the game going forward, as far as I'm aware. And I know that heroic encounters will still exist as going forward as well. So I don't know. I think those answer your questions.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of additional art budget that goes in with a dungeon too. That is
100%.
It's a lot trickier for that because they have to build that space for us and collaborate on that. Whereas in HE, we're just like, hey, we're going to carve out this little portion of a zone, set that up, and get it to fit with a story beat, and then build into it. So it's a little bit quicker for art to be able to work on that.
With April Fowls, Chantal was able to utilize existing zones, existing areas for art, which is why we didn't go into an art debt for to make the April Fowls. Now
that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think it would be great if we could do more of those like kind of mini dungeons reusing. But there's only so much we want to reuse because then it does reach a saturation point where the feedback we get from players is all the new content you're releasing is just reusing old stuff. So it's a balance. But don't get me wrong, like I love the little dungeon, or even just earlier today I was half jokingly told the team that I would love to have a whole module that's based on Challenge of the Gods, because I love the deities, I love pantheons. So expanding an event into a whole module would be my idea. But so definitely it's when the opportunity is there and the stars aligned, it works out, and we're so happy the players enjoyed it. But we also don't want to rely on that solely, because then players will hit a saturation point very quickly.
What about the notion of, I know Foundry is gone, but what about the notion of player created content? And I know there's some issues with that, with bugs and glitches and people abusing certain systems in the game. Is that still, I don't know if the question is that off the table to have player created content in the game, but is it something that is still kind of considered for the future to add more content to the game by the players, from the players?
Do you two want me to take this one, or do you want to try answering?
I can't answer that one.
Yeah. My understanding, I mean, I have limited knowledge, but you can go first, Julie, if you like, please.
I was going to say that it's I think Ryan mentioned this earlier. Nothing's ever off the table, but it is not a priority right now. Okay. There are other areas of priority. In terms of like for example the Foundry content, I do believe that all the content that was created for the Foundry lives somewhere. Like that data is not lost, but it's basically how to work with it, or how to make a new tool available for players to create content. It's a lot of work that right now it's not a priority, but it's not, we don't ever want to say no, we're not doing that,
Can we, are you guys able to answer any questions about PvP?
That falls under the systems flag, so.
That is definitely more in the purview of systems, but you can try us if you like.
Okay.
Please.
With PvP Season 14 going away, is what was proposed in the CDP for Neverwinter Heroes PvP, is that still being worked on? Is that still something that's moving forward, or has that stopped production? Is there any outlook on what PvP will be like from here on out?
I know PvP is not scrapped by any means. I know we definitely are still going to support and maintain it, but outside of that, I have no other information I can share that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah, all my visibility on PvP topics is in the conceptual phase, so it's not even something that I can discuss player facing yet. So I'm sorry that I can provide nothing on that.
Okay.
And that is, I mean, from a community manager perspective, some of you saw the announcement last week that the PvP season that started on Thursday was the last season under the current PvP format, under the current season format. And my goal is to get a few of the systems folks, hopefully Robert and Jared, to join me in a stream, and so we can actually focus on PvP. We did have,
that would be great.
Yeah, we did have a CDP on PvP where we got a lot of info, and it's just a matter of figuring out, how to best implement it, when, if we can do that. But it is definitely not something that PvP is not gone. It's just something that we have to, we wanted to be able to focus on and make necessary updates. We did get 14 seasons out of that season format. And it's something that after a while can become stale, so it's good to do a refresh, but one that feels valuable to players, not just, random.
Because you got to feel good. If you don't feel good playing the game, then.
And especially PvP. If you don't feel good playing PvP, well then, that's the nature of PvP. You don't feel good unless you're a rogue. So.
Yeah. You just one-shot everybody.
Yep.
Well, that's what rogues are supposed to do.
Yeah,
Our engineer would be very sad if he didn't do that to everyone.
But what about wizards, though? Where's the control in wizards?
One of these days, we're going to force Steven to play a wizard.
You should.
Yeah, because his love for rogues is just no. I'm sorry.
It's pretty insane, his love for rogues.
And here's a little bit of insight for the community, wondering if if internally how much dedication or care we have to changes. When Jared once had a presentation, no worries, about different changes in systems. So we all got together. This was back in the day where we could actually be in the same building. We got together in the warehouse, and No Worries gave his presentation and about changes. And like Steven, our engineer, his hand just shot up, and he's like, "But wait a second, how is this going to affect my rogue?" Like, it was like a feedback. It was a feedback worthy of a forum post. And from a community manager, that means something. But it was definitely passionate and dedication. So we joke around that a lot. But
rogues need a nerf. Rogues need a nerf. Wizards need a buff.
I mean, if it were up to me, rogues wouldn't exist. But that's just me.
I agree.
Oh, the community's gonna hate me, all rogue players. I'm sorry. Please don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me.
I'm a rogue player.
Warlock and a wizard. I play warlock and a wizard, and so I'm always
spellcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I play squishies, glass cannon, so I'm always constantly complaining. I'm a voice. I'm an advocate for them. Don't worry.
You too. That's how I feel about my thumb. Like, I'm not gonna go into it. We don't have time for it, but that's how I feel. I want to go back to something that you said, Lindsay, about you were talking about challenge content, tiered content, and like harder content. We haven't really seen that in the game besides Tales of Old going up to like ×5 in the difficulty and hardcore dungeons. Moving forward, with you saying that, is that something that you guys are working on that you just let slip, or is that something that it was just a thought in the back of your head?
It was a thought in the back of my head. I know that with I was part of the group that was playtesting the Zariel trial, and I know that the original one that Asherdal put in, and then I was pulled out of the one because I knew the mechanics. I was pulled out of the one, so I wasn't testing the easy mode. So I know that we do have the ability to scale things, to do easy modes, hard modes, and continue on with that. We have the epic dungeons and master tiers and things like that. So it's something that I know that we could do. Whether or not we have plans for it, I don't fully see the roadmap past what my current feature for M21 is. I know there's a little bit of things that I have that I'm penciled in for moving forward after that. But until that's all announced and we start going into the planning for that, I just have visibility on what I'm doing for M20 and M21. So
right. With M20 and M21, the second to last community stream, we talked about dragons. Will we be fighting dragons this mod at all? Yes or no?
Fighting dragons in module 20?
Yes.
I would say currently the plan is no. Unfortunately, we just didn't have the time to do it. Okay. We really wanted to. I know Randy and I and quite a few other people high up in the studio really want to make dragons a huge focus of the game again. Unfortunately, with COVID and everything else, our resources got stretched and they just kind of got shelved temporarily, unfortunately. But we definitely are wanting to bring them back as soon as possible, for sure, 100%.
I think I hear Randy mention dragons at least once a week during meetings, so that is.
And we're gonna we also want to bring them back so they're not just like squishy creatures that are loot pinatas. We want to make it dragons badasses again is what we want to do.
Yeah.
So
I like
that's the plan. So
there was a lot of gold in that. Like, in fact, Noah put in some really cool little stuff in the hub of Sharandar to kind of tease the dragons that we're hoping that we'd eventually be able to get into the module. But it's the way that COVID goes. It kind of has fun changing plans for everyone.
So how hard is it really to like like we have dragons that spawn for Tiamat and stuff like that. How hard is it really to just have a dragon spawn in Sharandar? Like, what if one day players log onto the game and you hear an NPC like dragons are attacking, dragons are attacking? Is that something that you guys could just flip with a switch and just throw like 20 dragons in a zone and be like, go kill them?
I hear the
Well-
ghost of David Anderson yelling at us.
Well, yes, we can actually. I mean, the short answer to Nova to your question is yeah, we could totally do that. It's very trivial. I think the server engineers would probably kill us first if we had 20 dragons, fighting,
Maybe
10
too
players
much.
or something. But right. But let's just say hypothetically, it could easily be. I could spawn a dragon quite easily with the tools we have to make content in the game, and players could fight it as long as we work with the environment artists to make the space for the dragon because they're large, right? And
Yeah.
and then, of course, they a dragon that has the correct powers or the spells, right? And the ability, the claw attack, the bite attack, the breath weapon, and all those fun things, which most of the dragons we have in the game that players have fought already kind of do. So it's not too hard to do that, but we don't want to just trivialize the encounter or make them not as cool as they should be, right? This is Dungeons and Dragons, right? And we want to put dragons in the game, but we want them to be the dragons people remember and not just the creature that I beat and I took a screenshot with and I got my loot and I moved on, right? So
Or be a creature that, because I think, like we have discussed about just having events where we just spawn things in Protector's Enclave or in other zones. Have, a big giant creature. But
Sure.
so it has to be something that isn't killed right away, but it also something that's not going to kill it. Like, imagine if you're just a player who wants to go and do some inventory management or go check your bank, and you enter Protector's Enclave, and as soon as you you log into the game, you die. That's not going to be a good experience either. You're going to just see, corpses everywhere. So there's that. Okay. So it's not just while it is easy to
Do
say,
they have
okay,
a scroll of health? Scroll of life?
there we go. But say like if we go in and do the command on live and do like spawn so and so, that's not balanced for these creatures and these monsters are balanced for what they were designed for. So throwing them in somewhere else.
Those encounters are definitely built around the environment they're in for a certain targeted player base, right? And if there's a player that's a new character in Protector's Enclave, to Julie's example, and we spawn a dragon in PE right next to Nox, and it kills that new player, how are they going to feel, right? That'd be kind of a terrible experience, right? So
I just got killed by a dragon.
we have to. Right, or it could be really cool, right? If it was your first time playing the game and you're like, I got to see a dragon, that was awesome.
It's camping my corpse.
I guess there's two sides of that coin, right? But generally speaking, we want to build content for the intended audience, and we have to do some time planning and thinking about that. And so we want to make sure dragons are cool and memorable again. So
Okay. I have another question. I had it on the list here. Just give me a second here. Let me see.
while you're looking, I can just talk. I can
Yeah.
go on to what Ryan was saying. Is I did throw some dragons in the hub, in the Sharandar hub, and every once in a while you'll get a dragon that will either land on a rock in the distance and it'll be silhouetted with the sun behind it and it'll project a big shadow over the hub next to all the quest giving NPCs, or I'll have a dragon will fly by. If you're looking just the right direction over the water next to the hub, the dragon will come swooping in and do a flyby and then disappear behind the rocks off in the mountains and the cliffs in the background, things like that. Did we lose Nova?
I don't know if we. I know your camera's gone, so we see your symbol. But
Okay.
Maybe he's putting on makeup or something, or changing his hat or something cool. Anyway, so
he's gonna appear as the dragon next. There you go.
Okay.
He's
Nice
gonna
to see
spawn
you.
a dragon on us. That's what he was about to do.
Yeah.
So there was a question from forgot his name. But it was about questing in Sharandar currently right now. So when you're questing with a group in Sharandar and you have the same quest, the progress doesn't complete for you and your party. Is there anything are you guys aware of that? And any plans to fix it?
There was a bug that with one of the missions in episode 2 that had some issues with group stuff that I just fixed on Friday. So there is some. We are aware of some of that, but definitely any of those issues, throw to the forums, let Julia QA grab them, and then Noah and I will end up addressing that during the week if those are aware. Will admit that the last week I have been slacking on my forum duty because I've been working on something else. So
Yeah, same.
haven't been checking the forums as much as I normally do. So I would have missed anything that would have come in the last week.
Yeah, and you can
I'm
also
currently
just
stuck in a
send
captcha
PM.
loop on the forums.
Yeah, and you can send me a PM too on the forums if you find an issue like that. You can tell me the mission name, the quest name rather. Sorry, this isn't Champions. It's not a mission. The quest name and different project, right? Tell me the quest name and what you were doing, and just give me a little bit of information, and just say, hey, I was killing these trolls and I didn't get quest credit or whatever, and then, and then we'll make sure we get it fixed for you and out right away on the next patch.
Yeah. I know that there was an achievement that was escalated for Xbox yesterday, escalated to the team where it's being completed in game, but the player was reporting that the Xbox achievement itself wasn't completing. So those kind of things, when people give us the details,
That's tricky.
I try to pass those on as quickly as possible. But yeah, sometimes we do miss things.
And for those who aren't aware, the PlayStation achievements and the Xbox achievements and the PC achievements are all completely different, set up completely different. The tech's very different because of the way each of those platforms work. So it may work on PC, but may not work on Xbox, and we'd have to fix it separately. But it's good to know.
I do want to
see that we're
address.
running-
I want to address some players real quick because there's a lot of people saying, you aren't answering a lot of our questions, and I have been keeping an eye on the questions.
I was just about to say that too.
A lot of them are systems based, and a lot of them are just. I mean, I think we've already been hammering Ryan and Noah with a lot of system stuff, and we didn't want to go too in depth in there.
Maybe we can explain what content people do. Maybe that might help.
I
Ryan,
I can. I know it's 4:01. I can probably extend about 15 more minutes before I have to go collect my child. But so yeah, if you want to talk a little about content,
we can go for another 4 hours.
I do have to stop the stream and let designers live. But I do, if you want to cover
I do have to get episode 3 finished too. So.
True.
But yeah, if you want to cover like what does content actually work on, kind of cover a little bit so to give people an idea of why we're not answering systems questions.
Ryan, do you want to go ahead and have a crack? I can just throw that out there.
Basically, one of the key differences between systems and content. Systems are the people who build the classes, the abilities, those type of things. The items that you get and the mounts that you're going to be able to use, lockboxes, things like that.
Creatures
all that
you fight.
Yep, creatures that you fight. All that stuff tends to fall under systems. Content, we deal more with the scripting of the events, the missions, the world zones, the way that things feel, writing the story. A lot of that's where we fall into content. We deal with placing the critters. So we go, hey, we want to have this really cool displacer beast that we want to use in this new module. We want this. We want to be able to do these 3 things. We pass that off to systems, and systems is like, okay, they build the mob, the abilities, and different things like that. And art and animation all work together to create that and have it all sync up and go together. Systems gives us the different versions of it. We make some adjustments to those things as well, but mostly that's their ballpark. That's their toy box that they get to play with. We're the ones playing with the toy box for setting up setting up the adventure zones, the instances, and things like that. If that makes any different, I know it's not necessarily the largest, most detailed explanation of it, but it's a quick one. Hopefully it helps.
The one kind of like creates the dungeon, the other creates the things inside the dungeon.
Correct. And the mechanics are almost like we'll give ideas for mechanics and be like, hey, we want it to do this. And sometimes there are designers, Salim is a classic example. He does both. He's one of those rare
class.
He is one of those rare.
He's a 3.5 hybrid multi-class. Yep, 3.5 multi-class.
And it's fun because I've worked on doing both ends of things. At the last company that I worked at, I did probably about 50-50 of each. So it's fun to be focused on just one thing and be able to try to do that as best you can. It's we don't always cross the streams when it comes to those 2 things.
Yeah, content is heavily story-driven stuff. We create a lot of the moment-to-moment elements, and we lean heavily on the systems group to provide cool fight mechanics. Right. For example, for those of you who played the Zariel trial, when you go into the trial, and all of the stuff when you get there that sets up for the fight is all the stuff that I put in. So when you first get in there, the NPCs you interact with, the respawn point, the doors you click, the barriers you click to get through to get to the fight, any angels that are standing there that wave to you or bow or kneel or say, hey, thank you, adventurer, for all your hard work. All that stuff a content designer will put in the game. But when you sit down and you actually get into combat with Zariel, that is all handled by the systems group and all that entire fight and all that stuff. So that's sort of to help differentiate how the jobs are split between us and the team, and the design group.
How do you choose like what to use and what not to use? And when you have that option, have you ever thought of bringing those options to the community and putting it to a vote? Like maybe the community might want to see this versus this, but then you guys do what's least voted upon. Like, has that ever came up?
I can't say that I remember us doing that.
Yeah, at other studios I've been at, we've done things like that where we'll put a poll on the forums and we'll say, hey, what would be the cool next class or the next race or whatever, right? And then we'd let the community decide. I don't know if Cryptic's ever done that. I don't know but again, nothing's off the table, right? So I don't see any reason why we couldn't do something like that if the executive staff were up into it, you know?
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. I'm open to it.
Noah, you have the senior in your title, so you have you can go influence people, right?
I'll just go I'll poke Randy. I've known Randy for a long time, so I can just go poke him and be like, "Hey, Randy, let's see what the community wants to do with these list of options," right? So,
do you guys have a favorite dungeon in the game? Out of all the dungeons, past, present?
Oh.
Personally, favorite?
Yeah. Person, honestly.
That's sorry, I'm getting pinged from like 3 other things right now.
It's tough because I have a bias because I like to pick the stuff that I've touched or worked on. So
yeah,
that's fair.
Mine's
I like all the Hallister stuff because Hallister was such a wacky, bizarre character that we had so much design freedom to do a lot of things with that character. For those who don't know Hallister, he's the main antagonist of Undermountain, and he's the Mad Mage, and he basically he creates all kinds of bizarre, wacky things and pulls things from all over different planes and stuff. And so I think I had some of the most fun creating a lot of the things around that character. So Ryan, I don't know if you have a favorite dungeon.
I'm somewhat partial to Vault of Stars because it's the first one that I've had any ancillary touching. So it's the same way, just because knowing it's a little bit of backstory, but Lasser and I used to raid together, so it was fun to see him working on a raid boss for that encounter or for that dungeon, and he did some of the work of that at my house because there was a whole set of fires here in California at the end of last summer, and his house was in an area that was completely without power or water for it felt like a month, but probably a couple of weeks. So he was working in my downstairs.
A couple weeks can feel like a month. I understand.
Yeah. So he was working from my place for some of that. So we would talk about some of the stuff that he was doing, and I would and he would bounce questions off of me, and I would bounce questions off of him about that stuff. So I have a little bit closer to connection with that one, and it's newer, and I really like the artwork on it. So it's got it's got the pretty shiny, which I will always gravitate towards those pretty things. That's part of the reasons why I like the Mended Grove as probably my favorite part of Sharandar, just because of how beautiful that the work that the environment team did on it.
And spoilers, the Vault of Stars actually there are lots of story elements that borrow heavily from the Vault of Stars in episode 3. So for the players who can run the Vault of Stars dungeon, I recommend you do, because the story you get from the Vault of Stars dungeon will be parts of it and elements of it will be heavily borrowed from in episode 3. So I'll share that with the group.
Speaking of Vault of Stars, you guys put out a developer blog on the Royal Gardener's failed experiments. Is that something that's going to be coming up in episode 2, episode 3? Does that mean there's going to be 6 bosses in the dungeon versus only 3? Can you give us any sort of teaser or bone to chase after?
That was all Salim, so I don't know what I
don't have any information on that. I remember I know the gardener was an interesting character to supplement the story in there. But I don't have any other information outside of what they put together, the systems group and Salim has put together for that.
Yeah, I will I'll have to touch base
with
him.
Nova. I know, I'm sorry.
But going back to the systems content, Salim was the content designer that was in charge of that dungeon, whereas some of the other people were involved with the systems end of things. Salim also did system stuff in it as well, but he was the one who wrote the story for that dungeon and went through it that way.
I do
Is
have
there
a
any
Nova. Can I interject a question from this
yeah,
chat? Okay, because Alpha
definitely.
Stream had a question that I wanted to bring up, and that is Alpha asks, content-wise, I'm curious how you balance the time for enjoying the lore, interactions versus combat.
Oh,
Like how we balance it from a design standpoint.
Yeah, like when you're designing it, how much time when you're thinking about the player experience, how much time is spent in the actual story part versus the combat part. Like how does it?
Sure. Well, I can talk a little bit how we make the sausage at Cryptic Studios on Neverwinter.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of it starts with a main story, right? And we sort of take that main story element, whatever that is, and then we expand it out and we flesh it out and we break it into different elements, chapters, different story arcs. And then those get converted into story beats. And then those story beats get turned into individual quests. And one of the things we try to do with quests is we try to make the gameplay, we vary up the gameplay with each quest, so that way the player doesn't get too bored or it doesn't feel too redundant. But then we also try to wrap up each individual chapter of those story arcs with like a mini boss fight, so it feels good and it has a nice bookend to whatever that story element is before the player transitions on to the next story element. So for example, we'll have, say, okay, and forgive me if this sounds very, very dry, but I'll explain to you. We have like, okay, a FedEx quest. We'll have a click quest. We'll have a kill quest. We'll have a go speak to someone, a contact quest. And we'll try to mix those up where it makes sense with the story. So that way, to answer the original question, is it gives it a nice feeling of balance to what you're doing as far as your activities go when you're playing through this main story. So that I'll try to tackle that as best I can, I think, as an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Did he get that? Oh,
Yeah,
Alpha?
did I answer your question,
Yeah.
Alpha?
I hope so. I do love the fact that you reference a FedEx quest. So those are kind of terms that
as long as it's not an escort quest. As long as it's not an escort quest.
Ryan beat me to it. Escort is another one of those tools in the toolbox, but it's one we don't use as much anymore these
and I am
days.
so
It's not
thankful
popular.
for. There's nothing like a bugged escort quest. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to kick off another giveaway. We can ask questions while people are submitting it. So just the final one. If you want a chance to win a Rainbow Story Panther, please type in the word content.
Right,
and then go ahead and ask questions. Go ahead.
Um,
Just one more though, because we got to wrap up.
one more. Okay.
Yeah.
What can you guys say without breaking any rules or contracts?
Nothing.
That will entice the players about the story. Like, is there anything that you can say about who or what that we'll be facing that will knock our socks off, that will like kick us in content coming in the future? Anything that you can sort of tease a little bit?
Far in the future are we talking about here?
Mod 20.
Okay.
So immediate future.
Yeah. I'll drop this tidbit without creating any spoilers. The final fight you do in the story, I don't think you guys are ready for it.
On the scale of not ready for it, like not ready for like Zariel, not ready for Hallister, or is it like on a completely different level?
It's for the story, so because it's for the story, it has to support solo play.
Okay.
But this fight, we worked really closely with the systems group to create it. And so just so people are aware, when we have solo content, a lot of the solo content, those fights have generally simple mechanics, right? And it's not meant to be a slight towards anyone. It's just because solo play and the story, we want players to enjoy the story and not worry about, oh, do I have enough potions? Do I have enough stones of health? Am I going to die during this fight? We want it to be an enjoyable story experience. However, that being said, the end of episode 3 and the end of module 20, that story fight is going to require players to pay close attention, and it's going to be something that not too difficult, but it'll be something that players are not used to and haven't experienced before when playing through the story content in Neverwinter. I'll just leave it at that.
It kicked my butt last week.
So
we've been one more that's a quick yes or no. One last one. Will there be a raid or a trial with Mod 20?
A raid or a trial?
Not with 20, I believe.
Correct.
Because we had a
that is correct.
dungeon.
Yeah.
We have a dungeon, so there is no trial currently slated. Again, but nothing's ever off the table, right? We could always introduce one in the future. We have plans to add some additional content for the very end of M20 to keep players interested in playing it while we get things ready for them for M21. So that could also include a trial. Who knows, right? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but
Okay.
All right, I'm going to draw a couple winners. And actually, just going to draw the 2 this time. Archeon, congratulations. And last one is
congrats, winner.
Canada Dude, 1972, which is probably Randy in disguise.
Nice.
Canada Dude, congratulations, both of you. Email community@crypticstudios.com. Let me know what platform you play on, and you have won a Rainbow Starry Panther mount.
Congratulations, guys.
Nice.
So,
all winners. Good job.
Thank you, both of you, for staying a little bit over time. I know that you do have work to do on, apparently there's another episode or other content coming out.
Yeah,
and
we got to make more stuff.
Yeah, but huge thank you. Thank you, Nova. It's been a pleasure. It was wonderful having you here. And thank you, community, for tuning in for this experiment. Please let us know if you liked having, a content creator here, because I really enjoyed it. I know there was a lot of questions we didn't get to. I am working on system streams, but I also really loved having content. It's wonderful to see all the people involved in development of a game. So huge shout out to everybody. Thank you. Any final words from anybody else before I just, say goodbye?
Thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity, really. Honestly, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No problem. Bye.
You're fine.
Toodles.